if there's one thing I've been a fan of since I was 3, it's dinosaurs. I used to run around pretending to be one, now I'm watching YouTube videos about them and making videos relating to dinosaurs, such as this one you're watching right now. When 5-year-old me wasn't making potions out of coloured liquids from under the sink, he was watching Dinosaur King and Jurassic Park. While I was like 8 or 9 or maybe 10, I had a camera that I used to make stop motion animation films with. They weren't very good, but hey, I tried. Anyway, by the looks of it, I wasn't the only one making dinosaur movies, because I found this beauty like a year ago. I have made a decision that I shall cover basically whatever low-budget dinosaur/monster-orientated movies and other media there are that I can find on YouTube. Whether it be some asylum train wreck or a certain film that tried to compete with Jurassic Park, I shall cover it sooner or later. Or never. My reasoning behind this is because I do want to have some sort of series on my channel, though do keep in mind these won't be the only videos I do. For this video I'll be covering Thugs Versus Dinosaurs, the film with clay dinosaurs, shocking clothing, and mispronunciations of German cities.
A few days ago, British bombers attacked Munchkin, Germany.
According to the director, Trip Tiffany, this film was made over the course of 3 years and set them back about $3,000 US, which as of May 2022 is about $4,000 Australian, so it isn't exactly cheap unless you're comparing it to films like Terminator 2. I just want to warn you, the acting is bad and there are moments where you can tell they couldn't really do what they wanted to do, or at least that's what I was getting from it, such as this scene. If you were being chased by a dinosaur, I doubt you would bother using the stairs. Also, according to the Goofs section on IMDb, the script is visible in certain shots. Do keep in mind that this was done by a bunch of kids my age, not a film company. Also, before I get into the plot, I sent an email to the director of this film, and I managed to get a response from him. He said in the email that the original draft that they wrote was in 2014, and was about 30 pages, but after rewriting it throughout 2015 and 2016, it was roughly 80 pages. In terms of ideas he listed off, one was of a mechanical Spinosaurus, like Mechagodzilla from the Godzilla movies. Another one was the 3 main characters moving from place to place via floods caused from the cloning machines spawning so many dinosaurs in the lake that it overflows. And the final one he listed off was a meteor hitting the Earth and our heroes falling down a 1,000-foot hole into the ground where they land at a bunker and they'd use it to survive and restart civilization or whatever. He never said they were good ideas. He also said Tyrannosaurus Rex wasn't featured due to him feeling it was an overused dinosaur at the time, so he decided to show off more obscure dinosaurs and prehistoric animals such as Spinosaurus and Kronosaurus. The robot Spinosaurus idea sounds interesting, but I don't know if it would have been beneficial to add beyond them being able to say that they did, though he might have had a different idea for the plot at the time, so who knows. Also, the flood one sounds kinda dumb, and the meteor sounds like him and his mates just got sick of the script and couldn't think of a better way to end the movie. The part of him deciding not to include T-Rex, in my opinion, is understandable. T-Rex and Velociraptors are the most overused dinosaurs, to the point they are nothing more than stock monsters at this point, like with werewolves, vampires, and mummies. And the same can be said for others like Megalodon nowadays. So many pieces of media, both good and bad, feature Megalodon, T-Rex, and Velociraptors, to the point they really do belong in the Stock Monster Hall of Fame. Anyway, I'll talk about the emails more after I cover the plot of the movie, so let's start. As long as it's an entertaining movie, the low budget can be forgiven. We see our main hero of the film running down the street on his way to give a lecture, and we get this piece of fine acting. He makes it to the person he's going to be lecturing, and we find out what his name is.
White. Seth White Boy.
By the way, in the email, he stated that there were meant to be 5 people, but they don't show up. Anyway, he gives his presentation about Spinosaurus, Deinonychus, Megalodon, Titanoboa, and many other extinct animals, including Kronosaurus, an Australian marine reptile.
Finally, something else to add to the list of stuff in this country trying to kill us.
The person he's giving a lecture to says his hair looks like ramen noodles, causing him to have flashbacks to some woman he dated who said the same thing, and then the person asks if they could bring back dinosaurs, to which he replies saying some things are extinct for a reason. Finally, someone smart in a B-grade dinosaur movie. He heads back home, looks at his toy dinosaurs, and proceeds to put on the gayest outfit I've ever seen, and writes a letter before dancing out of his house and then borrows someone's bike. While riding down the road, he sees a dead dinosaur and swerves to avoid it, causing him to hit a bunch of branches as he goes off-road. Considering AC/DC's Highway to Hell is playing while I'm writing this part of the script, I think my dad is foreshadowing what Seth and his mates are gonna go through before this film ends. After washing up on a riverbank and a scene of him walking through the forest that they could have cut down by like 5 hours, he finally arrives at his friend's house. And his friend's supposed to be German, which is why he's dressed in clothing similar looking to a Nazi uniform. I wouldn't be surprised if his car has one of these. Since I don't know how to pronounce German names, I'm just gonna call him George, since it's the closest to his name spelling-wise.
Hey! Yeah, what's all the hubbub? Bub, hole, or true move?
Okay, never mind. I'll just call him Spastic. So they talk for a bit and George says that Jenny, who I'm guessing is a friend of his, is off at work and White Boy gives George a letter. It's meant to be George's birthday, by the way. And upon witnessing one of the weirdest ways of pouring milk, White Boy and Spastic go upstairs and check up on their friend, Robert. And they decide to go get some food and take a camera with them in case anything happens. While walking to the bar, Robert asks Seth how he's going teaching paleontology, and they later get onto the topic of Seth's love life, and we find out that Seth has had multiple relationships, and he lists them all off. Hopefully all of them.
It never lasts. Abby, Alice, Amy, April. They always got real pretty before they left.
We get a flashback of what happened with his previous girlfriend, where she left him for someone he gets into a fight with. You'd think that the way this is going, it means that we're gonna see him be the knight in shining armour for whatever woman needs saving, but you'll see that's not really how it goes in the next however many minutes. They hear some roaring in the distance, so they decide to pick up the pace and pull out their camera. White Boy and George come across something large eating something else, which roars at them, so they run away to a treehouse and George just casually sits down while White Boy freaks out about it being a living Quetzalcoatlus. And White Boy realizes they dropped their camera. They decide to continue to the bar because they're closer to it than their house and stumble across a ski lift. The manager comes out and tells them to leave, but he's attacked by this weird dinosaur monster made out of tarp and tape, from what I'm guessing. And the thing just kinda stands there as it gets sprayed by a fire extinguisher, causing it to flee. And then the guy it attacked runs off but gets eaten by the Quetzalcoatlus. White Boy finds their camera and him and George return home. He gives the camera to Robert and shows him the footage of the Quetzalcoatlus. Then they watch the footage of when the camera was on the ground and see the dinosaur monster made out of tarp and tape. Then the power goes out. Robert magically has a torch with him, and while the others head off somewhere else, Robert goes and checks on the thing in the basement. He finds it and smacks it, but nothing happens. Robert finds this old chest with some dusty old book in it and calls for George and Seth. George and the wannabe pimp come over, and George reads the book, and we get this animated thing with a narration over the top. The narration is about George's grandfather, where he explains that the World War II bombing of Munich, Germany, which is mispronounced by the narrator, caused him to realise something, after it was found that the bombing destroyed the only known Spinosaurus fossils at the time. What he realised was how hard it is to preserve history, so he decided to head off to Egypt to dig up more Spinosaurus fossils or something, and he found something incredible. It turns out, inside the fossils he found laid perfectly preserved tissue samples, so he started his own organisation in Germany called the RPOS, which plans to resurrect extinct animals to preserve them. Only one problem though. Even though he has all the people he planned on hiring, they don't have money, leading to him asking everyone's favourite villain for money, because everything's got to involve Nazis and Hitler. Adolf Hitler basically said that if George's grandfather wants funding, the guy's gotta give him an army of large carnivorous dinosaurs to use against the Allies. Because I guess dinosaurs will be more effective than bombers, fighter planes, tanks, battleships, destroyers, or just some wanker with a flamethrower. Don't mean to go on a rant, but this reminds me of the fourth Jurassic Park film, Jurassic World, where some dickhead had the idea of using dinosaurs to scare ISIS or Taliban members out of caves or something, because I guess a dinosaur that can easily be killed with gunfire will be better than just throwing a couple gas grenades in or sending a Tomahawk missile down the cave opening. No wonder the Americans failed in the Vietnam War. They think dinosaurs are war-winning weapons. This isn't Ark Survival Evolved. This is reality, with the newly released 2022 Tyrannical Boogaloo update. The narration ends with George's grandfather saying that Hitler killed himself, and a little bit later, the lab he was working in was raided by the Americans, and they killed all his scientists, but he escaped. So now he plans on travelling to America to get his research back. Because I guess the government won't find it a little suspicious the files from the lab mention someone who just arrived in America a few weeks after they took the information from the lab in Germany to America. George and Seth start debating about staying inside or not and decide to stay inside until Robert realizes his daughter's still at work. When she doesn't answer George's calls, they decide to go get her. After some shenanigans on the road...
Oh, slow down, Robert!
Hammond, help me, I'm above your house, mate!
They arrive at her workplace. George decides to stay in the car in case he sees her, and Robert and Seth head off to look for her. To be honest, the scenery looks quite nice. I think it would be nice living there, actually. Robert and Seth walk in, and then we get the best piece of acting ever.
Oh my god.
They hear glass break, go to investigate, but hear something coming or something, and hide under the table and the dinosaur passes by. They make a break for it after the dinosaur passes them, but accidentally run into it again, and after punching it, they run up a flight of stairs, and Robert throws a skull at it. They hide behind some plants because purple clothes with leopard print insides and a Hawaiian shirt equals tactical camo, and the Deinonychus runs past. They make it outside and get chased up the stairs by the Deinonychus, and you can see the cameraman's shadow, by the way. They go two separate directions, and the animal goes after Seth, but they make it back to the car, and Seth punches it in the face when it tries to get through the open window, and they speed off. They decide that since Jenny isn't there, they'll go into town where she likes to hang out at some cheesesteak house, but when they arrive at the bridge, they find that it's closed. What the hell happened to his hat? Robert gets their trusty inflatable swan, and they paddle down the river.
Well, if we go by water, we should be safer, since most dinosaurs aren't the best swimmers.
So York, it's safe.
Nah, I think they'll just walk through it. They make it down the river on the inflatable and...
Whoa!
Shut up, there's dinosaurs
Anyone
out
home?
here. Robert tells the story of how he had a wife at one point, but sadly she was shot when they were on deployment once in Afghanistan. So since Jenny was all he had left, he swore to protect her. After comforting Robert for a bit, they quickly get off the inflatable as a Spinosaurus appears. They watch it from a distance, and some guy named Carlos shoots it but gets eaten because his aim was thrown off by Seth saying not to shoot it. And then they run off.
This is way worse than I thought. We need to get inside right now.
What if there are dinosaurs in there too?
Well, I doubt they can open up doors.
Good to see more people taking the piss out of Jurassic Park. They break into someone's house and some fat guy with a wizard beard shows up and says that he's a wizard and that his name's Ujamar. He must be on something. Also, apparently he sent out that Carlos guy to collect some dinosaurs for him. After talking for a bit and Robert asking if Ujamar has seen Jenny and getting no reply, they hear some banging and later someone yelling out looking for Ujamar. Ujamar tells them to hide and three strangers come out of nowhere and start talking to Ujamar about him selling them some dodgy potion or whatever, and one threatens to shoot him, so Seth steps in. The guy with the gun thinks Seth is a pimp called Scott Blackman and introduces him and his fellow gangsters.
Anything for a pimp. My name's LaBufa, this is Badonka, and that's Craig.
Hey. I'm Scott Black man. Scott Blackman.
LaBufa looks like he put jocks on his head. Badunka looks, to me at least, like he's an adult and a teenager at the same time. And Craig looks like the Predator if it transformed into a human.
Well, going to sit down now.
They quickly realise Scott Blackman isn't a pimp and that he's a paleontologist. LaBeouf starts messing with him by saying he dared some The audio here sounds like a 12-year-old Xbox user having a mental breakdown on Call of Duty. And Seth punches LaBeouf, who returns the favour. George appears out of nowhere alongside Robert, and the gangsters mention something about a black-haired girl they shot. Robert believes it was his daughter, so he goes to attack LaBeouf, but George stops him.
I'm still sitting!
Because I guess when your friend gets punched in the face, it's okay, but when your other friend tries to kill someone who might have killed his daughter, it's not okay. LaBeouf goes to shoot Robert, but the power shits itself and the top and tape monster appears. The thing attempts to kill Badonka, and LaBeouf tries to shoot it, but it reacts too quickly for him to do so, and it eats him.
I'm done sitting now!
After finishing sitting, Ujamar reaches 100% power, tells Seth to take his research while he fights the monster, but then he just teleports out. You know, he could have taken his research with him, but because plot, you know there's a reason why he didn't. Also, the two gangsters run away. Seth trips and the potions roll across the floor, then the monster comes in, so he grabs a symbol and uses it as a shield. Robert shoots the thing with a gun he found, because 120 guns per 100 people in Freedomville, and Seth pours one of Ujamar's potions down for the creature's throat. The tarp and tape creature turns into George's grandfather, and Robert looks at the label on the potion Seth used.
Oh, well that's convenient.
Too convenient. George's grandfather gives this massive monologue where he says of how they must destroy his creation, and it's at a lake, blah blah blah, and they must remember that they are
All thugs! You are thugs! Do you understand me? Never forget.
And now George can collect his inheritance. Just smack him a couple times, he'll wake up then. They realise the house is burning down, they make it outside. George says they should kill themselves. Then Seth pulls out of his pocket one of Ujamar's potions that spawns 3 pterosaurs. And they fly on the pterosaurs to somewhere else, I guess, and they decide to do what George's grandfather wanted them to do. And it turns out, Robert specialised in bombs when in the military. So they head off to make a bomb.
And we put our pot on the oven and set this to high, and it's on. Who turned this on? Now we cook a fresh batch of hot glue noodles to perfection.
It's dripping all over the place. Now it's on fire.
Make sure it doesn't burn on the bottom. Add more as needed to your taste. Lots of poisonous gases. I think it's ready to serve.
Well, that was easy, I guess. Anyway, Robert finishes making the bomb, but they don't know where the lake is, so George goes off to look through his grandfather's journal again. George hears them talking about how he's had no friends, no family, and stuff, and this pisses him off, so he says f*** a bunch of times, and storms off to his room. Seth goes to talk to him, but decides there's no point in it, so him and Robert head off to blow up the lake. I love how Robert casually chucks a bomb in the back of his car. I honestly wonder sometimes how there's 332 million Americans when they just casually chuck bombs in the back of cars. Also, George thinks about killing himself, but then reads the letter Seth gave him. Ah shit, it's the filth. You know what, I'm just gonna let this scene play out on its own.
Look, sir, I used to be an explosive technician for the military. Me and my friends here, we figured out where all these dinosaurs are coming from, and if you don't let us into that lake to blow up their headquarters, the whole world's gonna end. So, move along.
Seth quickly takes off while the cop is busy with Robert, so the cop calls in for backup as Seth makes his way to the lake. A Sarcosuchus shows up where Robert and the cop are, but before it eats them, George shows up and throws some potion towards a tree and the Sarcosuchus goes after it. I'm guessing it's meant to be some form of animal lure. George says that he realized that even though he's lost his grandfather, he still has Robert and Seth. And then the cop notices that our Nazi friend here has an MP40, and that he's probably here to kill other things besides dinosaurs. I hinted at it. I didn't say it. But you thought it. A pack of Deinonychus show up, so they open fire at them, while Seth plunges into the lake and sees a megalodon swimming by, which attacks a Kronosaurus chasing after him. After surfacing upon grabbing the controller, a Spinosaurus appears, but before he presses the button to activate the bomb, he has a flashback to when he fought his ex's new boyfriend. After he wakes up, he sees the sexiest man alive standing above him, and they walk off together into the sunset. Then he presses the detonator. Upon hearing the explosion, Robert and George start running to the lake to look for Seth, while the cop uses the rest of his Hollywood magazine. They find Seth's hat, and then we get some comedy to ruin the sad moment.
Amazing grace, how sweet. Oh, he's alive!
Like I said with George's grandfather, just smack him around a couple times and he'll wake up. A Titanoboa shows up, but the cop saves them by using an RPG.
Stay extinct, you snake!
After that, we get this news interview sort of thing, and the news lady says something about the military rounding up the dinosaurs, which leads me to say that I can't wait for Thugs Versus Dinosaurs 2. George reads through his letter again, and Robert shows up saying that George's father said all this stuff would happen, but he didn't believe him, thinking he was just some crazy nutjob. You know, that seems to be how the world has gone recently when you think about it, with stuff like the jab, the double jab, and of course the booster, and how effective they are against the virus. We all made fun of anti-vaxxers until it was found that the damn things don't work. Seth shows up with a cast made of dunny rolls and they hug him, causing maximum pain.
Ow, my arm! Ah!
Robert asks Seth where Jenny is, and then Jenny shows up and says the most American thing I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, same. But I thought that gang busted a cap in yo ass.
You know, I always wear a bulletproof vest to work.
That's my girl.
Jenny gives Seth her number, so I'm guessing that means this thing about him not being able to get a woman is now over. And Robert and Jenny head off to the cheesesteak house. George apologizes to Seth for saying that he's an unthoughtful jerk, and they finally go get that alligator kebab. And probably a couple roots as well, since they saved the world. So that was Thugs vs. Dinosaurs. First the emails, then my thoughts. Apparently the production was chaotic, but fun in retrospect. At the 2.5 minute mark, Seth was supposed to be teaching 5 students, but only 1 turned up, as I said earlier. I didn't notice this, but apparently you can hear a Pokemon Go sound in the background, because they shot it when the game first came out. The guy they got for the role of LaBouffa was meant to play one of the students as well as LaBouffa, so he cut holes into a hat to make a mask, but he never used it, since he never showed up for filming. And alongside that, the guy they got to play the wizard Ujamar is in the background. It's good to see he's still sitting. The scene where George thinks of killing himself was meant to be live action, but they didn't have time to film it. The film was shot over the course of 13 days, by the way. The scene where the Titanoboa shows up near the end was originally meant to have a Spinosaurus step in and save the day, but the actor for the police officer brought props with him. One was a rocket launcher, so they thought that would make a better scene than Spinosaurus vs. Titanoboa. And that's how Stay Extinct, You Snake Bitch came into existence. Also, according to IMDb and the emails, the police officer is played by Justin Silverman, who is one of the producers of The Room. Just thought that'd be interesting to know, since The Room is considered to be one of the best bad movies ever, from what I've heard around the internet. Now, pretty obvious there are some problems, such as the budget, but for me the low budget makes the film better, because it just makes some moments so laughable you can't help but enjoy this movie, so I won't really be talking about it in this section. One problem I noticed was the part of Seth having problems with women. The story starts out like this is gonna be his main goal throughout the film, then it's just tossed aside when the dinosaurs come into play and the gangsters and all that. I feel like if someone went into this movie with a critical eye, they would start getting the idea that with Jenny missing, Seth would be the one to save her, or to be disappointed when she just shows up at the end wandering around. I mean, yes, he saved the town from the dinosaur invasion, but still, you could have done something like have him rescue her from the wannabe gangsters. George's character arc I found to be decent. The guy's never known family, his only relative was killed by his friend on accident, and then he realises he's always had Seth and Robert as family. However, I've kind of found this sort of thing to be cliched a lot now by most media, to the point I can predict how it goes, such as the last season of that Pacific Rim Netflix fanfiction thingy and the purple-haired one. She never really had a family. The one she has is a blah blah blah. I find it disturbing that these are some of the first things to pop up when searching for an image of the purple-haired one for this video. In terms of stuff I liked, it's mainly the fact that it seems like they had fun making the film. This film feels kind of like that of stuff such as Who Killed Captain Alex, where it may not be a good film, but you can tell by the IMDb rating that people didn't really give a shit about the quality and just enjoyed it for what it is. I feel like the world would be a better place if everyone started making their own movies. Anyway, besides some other problems, like the fact that it seems like the military doesn't exist unless I forgot a scene while writing this, and the fact this is set in America, so you'd probably find there'd be a few rednecks going out dino hunting, I don't mind this film overall. I will admit, stuff like this does bring down my enjoyment of the film and all, but I don't mind watching it, even if, just from what I've said, it doesn't sound like a movie worth watching. Like with Battleship, I think I'll give this about 6 out of 10. I didn't mind it, and that seems to be the score on the IMDb page, so I'm guessing most people would agree. Thanks for watching, I've been your friendly neighbourhood dinosaur fanboy. Now go away, I'm bored.
Also remember to subscribe or